This is my kind of meal. Happy 2024. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely ready to start eating some just lighter meals. We have indulged in all kinds of things from breakfast casseroles to cinnamon rolls. We've got a whole buffet still full of treats that I need to get rid of. So today I'm sharing some low carb dinners. These are dinners that my family loves. So whether you're low carb or not every single one of us in the family is doing the low carb thing, but I promise you that these recipes are so delicious. You will not miss the carbs. Well, if we haven't met before, my name is Ange, and this is the Menu Made Kitchen. All right, so for this low carb stuffed pepper casserole, we're gonna start with this large cast iron skillet. You can use any skillet, preferably oven safe. And then I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of olive oil, and then I have a pound of ground beef here. You can also use ground turkey. I've done it both ways. It really just depends on what I have on hand. So really we're just gonna cook this until the beef is no longer pink. So while the beef is cooking, I'm gonna add about 2.5 cups of raw cauliflower rice to this large bowl here. You can also use a 10-ounce bag of frozen cauliflower rice. You just wanna make sure to drain the extra liquid. And then we'll add in 1 egg and 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. We'll just mix this up. This is gonna act as kind of like our binder in the casserole. So if you have any excess grease left over in the pan with the beef, just go ahead and remove that. I like to take a big bundle of paper towels and just use some tongs to kind of sop up the extra grease. Again, I just feel like this is so much safer than pouring grease into a cup. And next we're gonna add in our veggies. I've got 2 large green peppers. I've cut these into like little 1/2-inch pieces. We've got a 1/2 cup of diced yellow onion, 1 garlic clove minced, and then I've got 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And I'm just gonna mix this. We're gonna cook the veggies just until they start to soften. And once that happens, we'll add in 1 15-ounce can of fire roasted tomatoes with the juice. You can also use just regular canned tomatoes, but the fire roasted really gives it nice flavor. So I'm just gonna stir this together and kind of warm the tomatoes through. And then we'll add in the cauliflower mixture. I'm just gonna stir this to combine everything. We're not gonna really cook the cauliflower at this point. It'll go into the oven and finish cooking. So I'll just spread the mixture out into a nice even layer, and then I'm gonna top this with some cheese. I've got 1 cup of cheddar cheese and a 1/2 cup of mozzarella, but really you can use any kind of your favorite cheese blend. And then we're gonna pop this into a 350-degree oven. We're gonna bake this uncovered for about 25 minutes, and then we'll just let it rest for about 5 minutes, and it's ready to serve. All right. It is hot, hot, hot. Okay, so I'm gonna try this first without putting what I always put on stuffed peppers, and that's a little bit of ketchup. My mom always did that. She squirt a little bit of ketchup over the top of the peppers, and it was just so good. I think she would normally bake it that way, but I'm gonna try this just like this. I love the tender peppers in there. They're not like mushy. They still have a little bit of bite to them. And then the beef and the tomatoes, it's a really light dinner. I love that. It's not heavy. My husband loves this recipe because he doesn't have to try and like break apart the pepper. There's like the perfect bite in every bite. It's super yummy and fast and easy to make, especially for weeknight meals. Low carb. Okay, I'm gonna do some ketchup. And I'm doing the no sugar added. We've been buying this now for the last year, and I love it. It's really good. It's actually a little bit more expensive, but we don't go through ketchup very often, so it's worth it to me. Check that out. I feel like I'm 12 years old again. Yep, the ketchup's where it's at. I hope that you guys give this recipe a try, whether you're low carb or not. I think you'll really enjoy it. And like I mentioned, it's just a lot lighter and it's super delicious. You won't even really know that there's no rice in here because that cauliflower rice has kind of that texture and it holds everything together. It's such a great meal. Okay, so for our low carb white chicken enchiladas, we've got 4 ounces of softened cream cheese. I've got a tablespoon of taco seasoning, and then I'm gonna add in 1 tablespoon of milk, but you can do water. This will just help kind of thin out the mixture while you mix everything together. So we're gonna combine the cream cheese and the seasoning together until it's pretty smooth. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, and then I've got 3 cups of shredded cooked chicken. You can use a rotisserie chicken. This was actually left over from the weekend. I just made a batch of slow cooker chicken and shredded it so that I could have it for easy meals during the weekdays. So we're just gonna mix the chicken with the cream cheese and the seasoning until everything is combined, and the mixture will be pretty thick, and that's what you want. All right, so we've got our low-carb tortillas, and I'm gonna spread about 1.5 tablespoons of the chicken mixture down the center of the tortilla. I'll roll these up, and I'm not gonna even tuck in the ends. And this doesn't look like a lot of chicken, but I promise it's gonna be enough. So I'm gonna finish rolling up these tortillas with the chicken, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so for our white sauce, we're gonna add in 1 10-ounce can of cream of chicken soup. And this really isn't necessarily a low carb soup, but when you consider the serving size, it's actually pretty low carb. We'll add in 1 cup of sour cream and then 1 10-ounce can of Rotel tomatoes and green chilies. And we're just gonna stir this together until it's combined and creamy. And then we're gonna spray our 9 by 13 inch baking dish with nonstick cooking spray, and then we'll just place our tortillas seam side down in the pan. Next, we'll add our white sauce over the top of the enchiladas. It's gonna look like a lot of sauce, and it is, but once it cooks down and absorbs into the tortillas, it'll be plenty, and these will be so delicious. And then we're gonna sprinkle about 1 more tablespoon of taco seasoning over the top of the enchiladas. You can add this to the sauce as well, but I feel like doing it this way, it just adds really great flavor. And last, we're just gonna sprinkle 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. You can do Colby Jack or pepper jack. We're gonna place a foil over the pan, and I'm gonna pop this into a 350-degree oven. We're gonna bake this for 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna pull the foil off, and we'll bake it another 15 to 20 minutes until it's hot and bubbly. I like to add green onions over the top, but you can do cilantro or just leave it as it is. It's so, so delicious. I am so ready to dive in. Okay, so my favorite way to eat these is with a little bit of cilantro on top, a squeeze of fresh lime juice, and then I did some green Tabasco. You know, I love my green Tabasco if you've spent any time on here. And this was another one that is just so easy to make. Again, I use low carb tortillas, so this is low carb. However, I'm not the low carber in our family, so I'm gonna actually have some chips on the side because I like a little crunch with my soft tortillas. I'm gonna add some chips to mine, but let's give this a try. Okay, here we go. I had to get some chips. Oh yeah. And I know it looked like I didn't put that much chicken in the tortillas, but it's plenty. Once it kind of cooks down and you've got all that sauce on there, it's plenty amount of chicken inside the tortilla. I feel like it's perfect. Okay, I gotta take a bite with my crunchy chip. I love the Rotel tomatoes in there. It just adds a nice kind of fresh flavor. This is my kind of meal. I mean, first of all, I love all Mexican food. I love enchiladas and tacos and nachos, and this is another one that's great for leftovers as the flavors just get better and better. All right, I am so excited about this low-carb Philly cheesesteak. This is new on my website, and it's so delicious. So I've got a whole onion here I'm gonna slice up. I've got some green peppers. I'm gonna do 2 large. I'll cut them into thin strips, and then I've got about 8 ounces of button mushrooms. You can also do cremini. So I'm just gonna cut the mushrooms or slice them into thin slices. I removed like a 1/4 inch of the stem. So I'm gonna get these mushrooms and onions and peppers all prepped, and then we'll move on to our beef. Okay, so traditionally, Philly cheesesteaks are made with like a ribeye steak, but you can use any kind of good grilling steak. As long as it has some marbling through the meat, that's gonna be just fine. And so you can see the grain is going one way. I'm gonna actually slice it the opposite way, and that will make sure that the beef is really tender after it's cooked. And I have a little bit of fat around the edges. I'm just gonna remove that. And then I'm gonna cut the beef really, really thin. I mean, we're talking paper thin. I want it to cook quickly, but I also want it to be really tender, so it just basically melts in your mouth. So I'm gonna get my beef sliced up, and then we'll move on to our skillet. All right, so I've got a large skillet here. Preferably an oven-safe skillet would work, but if not, you can also transfer the mixture into a baking dish. So I'll add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and then I'm gonna add in my beef. I'm just gonna kind of break it apart so it's in a nice even layer, and then I'm gonna sprinkle on 1 tablespoon of onion soup mix. This is actually a homemade mixture that my best friend made me for Christmas, and I'll go ahead and link that in the descriptions, but you can also use like the Lipton onion soup mix. And then I have 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. So we'll just mix this together until the beef is coated in all of the seasonings. And I'm just gonna cook this just until it's under the pink stage. I still want there to be a little bit of pink in the beef so that it's not overcooked, because you want this to be super tender. So I'll transfer the beef to my dish here, and then we're gonna leave about 2 tablespoons of grease in the pan, and then I'll add in my veggies. All right, so once our peppers and onions have softened a bit and our mushrooms are golden brown, I'm gonna add in 4 ounces of cream cheese. I also have a 1/2 cup of beef broth. And I've mentioned this before, I love the Better Than Bouillon. I'll go ahead and link this in the descriptions as well. It's my favorite go-to for beef broth and chicken broth. It's just so rich and delicious. And then we're gonna add in 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, and then I'm gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm just gonna eyeball this because I've made this a few times now and kind of know the flavors that I'm going for. So you just want to stir the cream cheese into the peppers and onions until it's completely combined and nice and creamy. And next we're going to add in all of our beef, and I'm going to add the juices as well. And don't forget to scrape the pan there and get all of those little bits of seasonings. So you just want to stir this until the beef is coated in that creamy sauce. And then we're just going to spread this out in a nice thin, even layer. And I'm going to top this with cheese. So traditionally, like provolone cheese is like the quintessential Philly cheesesteak cheese. And I do regular provolone, not light. So I'm just going to add these slices right over the top of the peppers and onions and beef. And finally, we're going to pop this into a 350-degree oven. We're just going to bake this for 15 minutes. You just want to melt the cheese until it's nice and bubbly. Okay, check this out. I am so hungry. Okay, so even though this is like a lower carb meal, you definitely don't have to leave out the carbs. We have had this on toasted buns. You can do it on toasted keto buns. I've done that before, or just regular hot dog buns. I have served it over egg noodles. That is delicious. Over rice. Like, there are so many ways that you can serve this, but this is a low carb friendly meal. So if you want to serve it that way, it is delicious just like this. Like, this is filling and satisfying. You can serve it with a salad. I love this recipe too because not all of us in our family are low carb. And so sometimes I will, like I said, make a, like boil some egg noodles or make some rice. You can kind of meet everyone's needs, but not have to make like 2 separate meals. So, okay, we're gonna give this a try. Big bite. That steak is so stinking tender. I've done this with filet mignons, and I know that probably some of you are like, what? But that's what I had. The steak was so tender, but this top sirloin, sliced thin against the grain, so tender, like it just melts in your mouth. That's why it's so important not to overcook it during that first step. Just do it just until you see a light pink and then pull it out of the pan. And I like that it's not like heavy on the cheese. Those provolone cheese slices on top, it just gave it enough cheesiness because that cream sauce is perfect. It gives it enough richness, And these mushrooms, oh my gosh, like this meal, I would eat this every single week, every week. I'm so glad I did not eat lunch today. Oh my gosh. All right, so for our low-carb King Ranch chicken casserole, I'm gonna start by prepping the veggies. I've got a half of a yellow onion here. You really just want to equal about a half a cup diced. And then I also have a red bell pepper. I'm just going to use half of this because it was pretty large, but you can use any colored bell pepper that you like. And again, I'm just going to cut these about the same size as the onion. And then I have my low-carb tortillas. These are 5 inches in size, and then I'm going to use about 5. You really want to equal about 2 cups total of diced up low-carb tortillas. So you can really use any kind of low-carb tortilla that you like. And you want them to be about a ½ inch in size. So I'm just going to get these all diced up. All right, now that we have our veggies and our tortillas prepped, I'm going to heat my large skillet here. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of avocado oil, but you can do olive oil or even butter. And I'll just saute the veggies until the onions are golden brown. And then I'm going to add in 3 tablespoons of blanched almond flour. I'm going to cook this about 1 to 2 minutes. I want to toast the almond flour, but also just give it a chance to kind of thicken the butter, or the oil, I'm sorry, or whatever kind of fat that you use. And then we'll add in 1 cup of chicken broth. And I'm just going to stir this and bring it to a low simmer, and the liquid will begin to thicken. It's not going to get super thick, but it will reduce, and you can see here the mixture is a little bit thicker than it was when we started. And then I'll add in 1 tablespoon of ranch seasoning mix. I have 1 cup of medium salsa. You can use mild or hot if you really like it spicy. And I'm just going to stir the salsa in before I add the sour cream, just to make sure that it's not super hot so the sour cream doesn't curdle. And then I'll add in 1 cup of sour cream. We'll give this a stir until everything is combined and creamy. And then we'll add the rest of our ingredients. I've got about 3 cups of shredded cooked chicken. I've got 1½ cups of shredded Colby Jack cheese, actually I just did 1 cup of Colby Jack. The other ½ cup's gonna go over the top of our casserole. And then I threw in those tortilla pieces, and I'm just gonna stir this until everything is combined. And then I've got a casserole dish here. This is about 1½ quart size, and I'm gonna spray it generously with nonstick cooking spray. We'll add in our chicken mixture, and then I'll just spread this out until it's a nice even layer, and then I'll top it with the remaining about ½ cup to 3/4 cup of cheese. I'm going to cover this with foil, and we're going to place this in the oven at 350. We're going to bake this for about 25 minutes with the foil on, and then I'm going to remove the foil and we'll bake it another 15 minutes or so. Oh my gosh, you guys, check this out. Doesn't that look so good? So I just like to do fresh avocado over this, because I feel like it's creamy enough. You really don't need like sour cream. You could do some hot sauce. I wouldn't call this, I mean, I know this is kind of like, it seems like it's kind of like a Mexican dish because of the tortillas, but it's really not. It's just a creamy chicken casserole. Like, that's the best way that I can describe it. And with that little bit of ranch seasoning in there, it just gives it really good flavor, and it's just a cozy meal. Oh man, I love, there's almost like a little bit of sweetness from the salsa, which obviously has some sugar in it. But I love that because this is so savory that salsa just gives it that little touch of sweetness. And I used medium salsa, so it definitely has a little bit of a kick to it, but it is so yummy. And just, I mean, this is just comfort food right here. It's just so cozy, and the chicken is tender, and that fresh avocado is just perfect with this. I think that this would be great with like a side salad, and you're good to go for dinner. And it was so fast and easy. I mean, essentially, this does have veggies in it. You got your peppers and your onions, a little avocado, or is that a fruit? That's a fruit. But you could just go with this and nothing else, and it would be kind of a complete meal in my opinion. Well, I am so glad that you spent some time with me in the kitchen today. I hope that you feel inspired to try something new. And remember, all the recipes can be found down in the descriptions. And make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and we will see you next time.